Thank you for joining us for your September 27th parkerweather.info daily update. Thanks for joining us today. We got a lot going on, some potential stuff going on in the tropics, and then some heavy rain in the southeast. We're just going to jump right into it. Well, I remember the other day we talked about a potential low that was going to move into the southeast and affect the weather down there, and sure enough, it not only came into the southeast, but it also brought a lot of heavy rain and some pretty strong storms along with it. Areas like Charlotte got almost under 2 inches. Atlanta and Columbia both got over an inch. And then other areas in South Georgia got even more rain than any of those three cities. So here's a current loop of what's going on. Savannah, the coast of Georgia is getting absolutely pounded, as are parts of Gainesville, northern Florida. And then the coastal regions of South Carolina and North Carolina are absolutely getting slammed as well. If you shift all of that up into the northwest, that's sort of what it looked like about 2.5 to 3 hours ago. Central Georgia was getting pounded, but that's all sort of moved off to the eastern coast. But it's been absolutely great across the majority of the United States. Look at those current temperatures across the area. I don't really see anything above 90 degrees down in Arizona, but other than that, there's not much even above 60 degrees. So it's absolutely gorgeous across the majority of the U.S. So we talked about Tropical Storm Matthew and how it was going to move into Nicaragua and Honduras, and it did, and it brought heavy, heavy rain to that entire area. Here's the current visible image. It isn't a tropical storm anymore. It's fully dissipated according to the National Hurricane Center, but it's still bringing heavy, heavy rain to areas of Mexico, and then there is our AVN loop. So it's brought heavy rain to Mexico, torrential downpour, potential flooding, all that kind of dangerous stuff. Well, here's why it has felt so good the pretty much all day yesterday and into today across the majority of the southeast. If you see that line that's drawn from just east of Michigan, all the way down into southern New Mexico. You can sort of see it's almost like a seesaw where all the heat has pushed down into the western United States, and it's allowed a lot of cool air to droop down into the southeast U.S. But notice how that's also going to allow a lot of storms that could potentially develop in the Gulf of Mexico to slide up into the southeast because there's nothing forcing it out of that entire area. So here's our current area of tropical development. A little section followed Tropical Storm Matthew, and we're worried that that is going to be our area of next development. It's a pretty broad band of convection, but still something worth keeping an eye on. So there is the current loop of what's going on down there. You can see Matthew off in southern Mexico, but that giant ball of convection right there looks like it could begin to get its act together into tomorrow, and I would not be surprised if they gave that tropical depression status over the next 24 hours. So here are our current steering patterns, and remember we talked about a blocking high and how a trough will stay put and make weather systems go around it, but it won't get pushed out of the area. And that's sort of what is being set up on the eastern seaboard. Notice that high pressure that's sitting in the northern Atlantic, and that is going to push the weather system that's in the southeast to the north and around it. That weather system in the southeast isn't big enough to move this high, so it's going to force its way around it. And notice how all of it is steering anything that develops into the Gulf, it's pointing it directly to the southeast. It's sort of going to slide in between two systems, anything that were to develop. So this is a loop of the CMC, which is a Canadian model, and it shows that there is definitely going to be something that's going to develop in the next 180 hours. And this model actually has it getting pretty strong. And then notice it has another system in Florida going its way up the eastern coast. And then one more system just to the west of Haiti, Dominican Republic, and into Puerto Rico. So notice that system gets actually really strong, hits Florida, re-strengthens, then goes back into the southeast and into southern Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia. So a potentially pretty dangerous setup we have here with this high pressure off the eastern seaboard. So the next model I'm going to show you is the GFDL, the Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory model. And this one doesn't have anything quite as strong as the CMC. A pretty broad area of low pressure in just south of Florida, and then it's going to get somewhat of its act together going to get somewhat of its act together as it finally goes up the eastern seaboard, but nothing like the CMC. This is the United States Navy model, the no gaps, and 3.5 days from now, it has a pretty broad area of low. It has a pretty significant area of low pressure just south of Florida. And then we go to 5 days, and we have another one up the eastern seaboard that's moved up there, and then another one has developed just in the Florida Keys. And then in 6 days, that Florida Keys one looks like it's going to develop even um, to even stronger capacity and should be hitting the Florida area. So there are a couple things we look at. There are four main things we look at when we're looking at tropical storm genesis. I'm going to sort of start at the bottom. The intertropical convergence zone, an African wave, which is basically something that comes off the coast of Africa, then works its way across the Atlantic into our area. And then two of the biggest things that can cause stuff in our area, though, are cold fronts that slide off the coast and then low pressures that slide off the coast and interact with that warm water and create a lot of heavy storms that can sort of get its act together. And that's kind of what we're looking at right now. That front is going to slide into the Gulf of Mexico and potentially cause tropical activity off the coast of Florida. And that purple area, or pink area, excuse me, is the area we're going to be looking at the next couple of days for tropical storm development. And with a lot of it, we could see a lot of potential rain, almost a little over 9 inches off the South and North Carolina coast, 5 inches into parts of Virginia, 1 to 2 inches in parts of Georgia and western South Carolina. So a pretty potential devastating setup for the eastern coast over the next couple of days as that blocking high begins to steer storms into the southeastern United States. This has been your weather synopsis for September 27th, 2010. Be sure to log on to our website, parkerweather.info, and our blog, parkerweather.blogspot.com, for all the latest updates.